Well, I got a bit of a mystery here. Rebuilt the final drive, put in a new pinion shaft, a new pinion, came as a kit. This is the old one, broke. You know, here's the old bearing for it, the whole deal. So that's over there. Now, the problem is I can't get the pin, the wedge pin, to go in properly. So I have removed this from the drive to make this the only variable. I have checked the seat of the bearing. There is no room between the race on the bearing and the shoulder on the shaft. There's none. It ain't going. It's pressed on all the way. Now I measured from the race to the tip. I also pieced this back together, put this bearing on, and did the same. I got 54.25 here, and on the old one I got 54.45. So, and keep in mind, when I'm measuring, I'm just piecing this back on. So that could even be the extra little bit of space, you know, contributing to it seeming longer. Could be this break in the way I'm measuring it. Now I also measured, because this is angled, okay, you can see that's an angle there. Pin goes all the way through. I measured from the short shoulder and the long shoulder to the bearing race. On the old one I'm getting 34.81 to the short. On the new one I got 34.17 to the short. Now at the same time, remember, on the new one I'm having trouble. This one's easy. I just press the bearing back on. This is wide open. I can measure in. So my caliper kind of tilts a little bit going from here to here. So I would expect that to account for a little bit of variation on the new one, but it would be consistent side to side. So 34.17 compared to 34.81. And 35.35 on the new one compared to 35.88 on the old one. Now on the old one, the slope, the difference between these is 1.07 millimeters. On the new one, it's 1.18. It seems okay, but that's not insignificant when you're looking at clearances. So this is out of here. This is the yoke, the whole deal. We'll put this in here with the top facing forward. We'll put the boss on top. Okay, so slides around. We will put this pin in. I'll try it with the bevel toward the front. Here, move it around, push it in. Okay, that's in there. It's not going any further. Okay, it's not going any further, not without something breaking. That's it, it's in. Now, this is a shimmable space. It's not hard against the bearing. It is not the bearing pushing on this, stopping this pin from going through. It is binding purely inside here. That's the only possible place it can bind. And the way that I put it on, I've got a lot of shimmable space, relatively. I mean, that's not a lot, but there's plenty of space in there to add shims, which is what I expected to do. Okay? Let's take that back out. So the slope is forward with the boss on top. Let's turn it 180 degrees and then put the boss back on this side. Okay, now let's see if we can get this pin to go in. Of course, the chamfer's now facing backwards. Okay, try to put this in. That's as far as it goes. It's not going any further. Now, there is much less shimmable space back here, but I can, from my eye, I can actually see the glint of the shaft down in there, and it accepts a piece of paper. So, thin, yes. Shimmable, yes, that's shimmable. It is not making contact with the race on this bearing. That means it's binding right here. So, now, that means that the problem is right here. It is either this shaft or this pin or this yoke. Fortunately, I have another rig over here. So I have the yoke and the pin off of it. So now what I have eliminated are these two things. I'm providing new ones. Now, this yoke is kind of cruddy and a little bit difficult to get on, but it came off the Tourist. So the first thing we'll do is we'll try put the tilt to the top, so it's tilting out. Put the boss on the top. That's the way I generally do it. This will require the most shimming, if shimming is required, because it's going to pull it out. Put the bevel in here, whichever way it wants to go. Maybe it goes this way, head it backwards. Like I said, this one doesn't move as easy. There we go. And you can see it still, this is as far as it goes in. It's not going any further. Okay. Did go a little bit further. I mean, now I've got a maybe even closer to 1/8 of an inch instead of a 1/16 of an inch, the most I could get out of that one. New pin, new yoke on the same shaft. And there is a huge amount of shimmable space here. Fold this paper. See, plenty of shimmable space. So, why is this happening? My only explanation at this point, because this is in effect trying this without this bearing even being on here. If I took the plain shaft without the bearing on it, it's not touching the bearing. It's not a factor. Shims are not a factor. The only factors are this pin, yoke, shaft, and the angle that it is at. Okay, by swapping to a new yoke and pin, we've eliminated those. So that leads me to believe it's the shaft. So I closely inspected the shaft looking for burrs, any angles, anything inside of it. I even took a rat tail file. Took this so that I didn't put metal shavings in the bearing, and I rat tail filed the top and the bottom to make sure there were no burrs grabbing anything. There's nothing in there. The only way I know to call this is that this shaft is not right. I don't know. If you've got a better suggestion, I'm open to it, but I don't understand what's going on with this. I thought I had this done and this was ready to go back on the rig. It ain't happening.